Oh, Blockhead.
Okay.
Skating for Blockhead, filming the first video,
Yeah.
right? How did that go?
That was cool. You know what was cool is the guy Dave who owns Blockhead's pretty creative kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he kind of had a site to build these ramps that were made with like corners and hips. And he basically, when Parks died, he made Parks out of wood.
Yeah.
Is what he did. And he figured out the geometrics of how to make a corner out of wood, and how to, at first it was PVC, and then he learned how to make the coping out of, bend the steel. And then, so we were kind of luckily a part of that early part of those, like, pioneering that whole thing with that, which was cool because I grew up always wanting to kind of like looking at all the old skate parks, like that place looked sick. I would have loved to skate there. And he kind of made that dream happen. You know what I mean?
Rad.
And then he also was kind of a pushover.
Oh yeah.
Because we had a bunch of kids on the team. We were all derelicts. You know what I mean? We like at this point.
Didn't you guys all like live at his house for a little bit?
Yeah, this was like probably 89, 90 into 91. Mm-hmm. We had like Rick Howard on the team. Yep. We had Jason Dill, Steve Barra.
You had a kick-ass team.
Yeah, and we had like a bunch of, kids that skated all kinds of stuff. And he just liked to skate tranny. I felt like himself, and he was finally making money. So he's like, I'm going to build what I want. But, he still always, he was a really big advocate of like the progression of like what everyone wanted to do. And so guys like Rick, would live there for the summers. And then we were right down the street from Tony Hawk's house at the time. So Tony had his little, facility with the vert ramp with the spine and the bowl. And it was kind of like a perfect era of being in the right place at the right time. And we used to he would buy us beer at a young age.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I mean, when you're 16, you're like, yeah, beer. This guy, he gets it. No, but I mean, not really. No, don't. I don't want to throw him under the bus. But
sure.
he would just be like, we would do our own thing. We would get any means of whatever we wanted to when we wanted to.
Right.
And then, we just had a cool little crew of people that were doing rad things at the time. And it was right when all the big companies were kind of being too big and no one wanted to be a part of this big stuff. It's like, Mark and those guys were starting Blind. And then at the time it was like, it sounds weird, but that whole new school era, new school, they used to always say that, old school, new school. Yep. And it was like kind of a weird thing. Like, what the hell? Like they divided this stuff. And that, back to Rocco, it had a lot to do with Rocco's mentality of, I'm going to destroy this corporate conglomerates of guys that aren't in this actually skateboarders,
right? And
make these kids,
put them in charge.
Yeah, put them in charge, and that's kind of what happened. That guy kind of single-handedly had a lot to do with that whole generation of skateboarding. And so Dave was cool, and I liked Dave, and he let us kind of just run amok and filmed it.
Yeah,
and that was it. Speed, do whatever, splendid eye torture, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just, it was like the worst quality of, it wasn't Stacy Peralta.
Sure.
But it was creative.
And it was cool, and it was like, it was the opposite of wanting to be what Stacy Peralta was doing, because he got to the point where he's so technical, the wheels are spinning so slowly. Right. You know what I mean? And H Street came, and they were like, tricks. And then H Street was also another,
H Street was like every Instagram clip all pushed together.
Yes. H Street was Instagram.
Yeah.
Pretty much. They might as well just call it Instagram Street.
Insta Street.
It's true.
That's a good name for a company now.
Instagram Street. Where's Tony Magnuson when you need him?
It's a couple eyes.
But and then, Danny Way and all those, like we were all kind of those kids that were all in it together from a different generation than the Bones Brigade generation. And Danny was actually a good friend of mine, and we were all like in San Diego at the time, and they had their whole crew, like H Street, the whole Alfonso and Fred Orlandi and all those kids that came out of that whole camp were like we were all kind of like friends that were skating together. They'd come skate Blockhead around. We'd see them in the streets. It was like street skating meets vert skating meets doesn't matter what trick you're doing. You just, if it's clean or not, just film it.
Right.
You know, get it out there. And it's just, it was just absolute like mayhem at that time. I felt like where it was like, but it was just progressively like, you know, you use Instagram, but it's exactly a very similar situation to what was going on. Those poor quality VHS tapes being distributed all over the world.
And kids were eating it up.
Kids were eating that shit up, and they were like, they didn't want to be a part of the Bones Brigade, and they didn't want to be a part of Vision because, you know,
Too polished.
Too clean.
it was just, it was like everyone found that little underground niche, and at the time skateboarding was dying.
Yeah.
So it wasn't big enough to produce what they were producing. They were kind of in a bigger, they were a big fish. We were the little fishes in a big pond.
They were the Nike.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were the
Lakai, whatever.
we were the, I don't even know what to say, man. We were
Skechers.
sandals.
02s.
We were Crocs at the time.
Oh wow, yeah.
No, not Crocs.
No.
But yeah, no. So that's crazy that because you just filled in the blanks of what I would have said, but it's like what you're saying is what I didn't even have to say,
That's what I'm here for.
and then it got technical. It got super technical, and then there was no money
Right.
because it didn't matter. There were so many pros. Anyone's pro. And everyone started making all these companies, and then it was like wildfire of companies. Like this guy, I'm all of a
Kind of
sudden,
happened a couple years ago.
all of a sudden, I'm this company, and
We have these pros.
yeah, and then it got to the point where I was like, oh, well, maybe the Powell thing was kind of on some sort of direction.
Sure.
Maybe they had a point over there, but yeah. And then I rode for Acme Skateboards, which was
Acme, yeah.
kind of a crazy time in skateboarding, you know, where it was like
Acme didn't want to do pro models.
they didn't want to do pro models because at the time there were so many. That was his point, was like anyone can be pro, and that lasted for a little while until people realized like, well, now there's these reissues. We need a pro model.
Wait a minute, so you went from Blockhead to Acme?
Yeah,
Why?
at the time, Plan B and companies like that started, you know, creating teams that were like what we were doing, like those just
They were super
Super
teams.
team, yeah.
super teams, you know. And Acme actually at the time had a really great team, but he went against the grain. It was a Jim Gray company, which I couldn't find in. And I just at the time just went with what my gut heart feeling would be to go to, and I don't know, it was weird because like skating back then was like we had a really great team, but
Guess had Remy.
yeah, we had Remy, we had Queen Newen,
Oh, sick.
and then
Brad
they had the
Hayes,
whole
too?
Brad Hayes. We had the whole Channel 1 team too, which was like Chet Thomas and
Wasn't Ave on there too?
Abe was on there. I mean, it wasn't the skaters. It was the idealism of skateboarding was really small. We were trying to do something different, and it didn't really pan out to being like what the company owner, which you know who his name is, was trying to go against the grain of skateboarding, and kind of we went with it, but then we realized like this isn't working. Yeah. So then I regrouped my faith,
Sure.
and then I started riding for Black Label because Black Label was like a hometown company,
It's amazing.
and John Lucero was like at the time he just got hooked up with Giant Distributions, which was Element and all that, and I always was a fan of John's graphics, and he's a hometown based company, so I always kind of stayed
solid dude.
hometown based.
dude,
Yeah, and his art skills are, you know, like far above a lot of people's. Just he's just one of those guys who knows how to take a person's appearance and identity and change it into a graphic, which I feel like a lot of companies don't do anymore.
No.
They just come out with crap.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, this is your crap,
Yeah.
and your name's on it.
Sure.
And I feel like,
Are you into space?
yeah, well, that's like a throwback to like
Space Invaders, right? Or
Galactica.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. That's right.
but like that's whatever. But like, but like his like over the years, the stuff that he's done and the way that he does it, he's created a lot of identities in skateboarding.
Yeah.
You know, all of the vision stuff back in the day, a lot of people don't know it, but like even his own graphics are so legendary. Grosso is Grosso because of a lot of not because of John, but his identity of through his graphics. John's helped that, and he's helped basically all of Schmidt sticks back in the day, which was you know, those were like some heavy graphics that were they were selling thousands of boards.
Yeah.
Like at one point he was selling like 15,000 boards a month.
Yeah.
John Lucero's graphic with the bars and stuff, like that's why those guys can
still sells.
push probably more wood than the kids. It's not, it's an identifiable graphic that has history, but it's also just a solid piece of art.
Right.
And I feel like he can do that through all his other writers. You know, he had Cardiel when it was Skater of the Year, and you know, the candy board,
graphic,
you know, like that he just knows how to like take someone and be like, you're cool, I'm gonna make you cooler because I see this vision of what your art could be on this board, and you just leave it in his hands, and then either you're not or or you are, but like
that Lance board he just did was pretty sick.
I mean, anything John kind of puts his mind to. And if he's since he's an artist, it's very hot or cold whether he's like, it's like writer's block. Okay.
Writer's block.
I don't have writer's block right now, and then it's on. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he's an artist, and he can capture your attention by preparing you with a graphic that's going to identify with you and identify to other people, make them be like, whoa, this connection's unreal, So
And like you said, it's very rare these days for that to go down. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a shame.
Well, it's also back then, I remember my first board on Blockhead, Ron Cameron did, and that board lasted for 6 months.
How insane
to a year?
Yeah. Nowadays it's a month.
This is a funny story. I was in Vision one time with Mark Gonzalez, and he had the half face, the half face Vision board. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, he went in there and had a meeting with Brad Dorfman. He's like, I don't know, Brad.
That's okay.
I want this graphic out now. I was like, well, we only do stuff like 6 months. He's like, well, I want my board out now, because he's an artist.
Yes.
And he saw his graphic as being old. So when that started happening, I was watching Mark, and I was like, dude, he's basically like, he's demanding like this dude. And then what are you going to do if Mark's basically warning you that like, I want mine now? So Mark single-handedly changed the graphic identity of how long a graphic changed out. And that comes from Mark's mentality of being an artist. Yeah. If I was to do my graphics every month, I would want it to be something different if I was an artist, because your last piece might not be your favorite piece. Mm-hmm. Your next piece might be more important to you.
Right. Yeah.
So I watched him go in there and kind of like, and I feel like Mark's the person who really changed the identity of how graphics
changed so quickly.
Changed so quickly. I feel like he was the one to really make the wheels turn on it, and that's because he's an artist and he was like stoked on what he was making. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can't personally, I'm not an artist, so I can't personally come in there and be like, this graphics should be better or whatever.
Right.
But I was in Vision one day when he did that to Brad, and I'll never forget it because he had it on this like the little rice paper thing, and he was like showing him, and I was like, that's pretty sick. Like, and sure enough, after that, like, it was like, I don't know how many months graphics
just turn over.
And but back then in the late 80s, early 90s, it was 6 months, maybe. Some graphics lasted for
years.
Yeah, like over a year, Yeah. I mean, John's graphic still,
it's crazy.
Tony's graphic.
Yeah, Tony's graphic. Yeah. So I mean, even Mark's graphic with the little guy, which you can't probably get from Brad as much anymore. Now it's the complete opposite. But that Mark graphic was like probably lasted for years at a time, you know?